Hello, I'm Alex Mansfield, the host of Manny Talks Shooting, and welcome to another episode. This is the shooting podcast where I talk to individuals all across the shooting industry. We'll talk competition, self-defense, concealed carry. If you like this content, check out our YouTube channel, Manny Talks Shooting. And without further ado, let's get to this episode. Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to another installment of Manny Talks Shooting, the shooting podcast on the internet, through the internet, because I'm not like Brian Conley. I do not have a magical mystery tour. I don't drive to every match that I can, but it's okay because this is what I enjoy doing. Sitting down with me tonight is the guy who is crazy enough to try to build open P320s and have awesome triggers. It's Dan Feltyberger. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I wouldn't say this has been one in the making, but it kind of has because it was on the back burner in my brain and enough people made me remember it. So it's all good. We finally got Mr. Dan on the show, and we're going to talk everything that we want to talk about. I don't even know. First of all, I will send my condolences to you. I'm sorry about your nationals experience in 2023 with and having to switch guns. What? How many stages in?
I was on my sixth stage. I finally gave up on trying to make the Open 320 run successfully.
It's okay. We'll talk more about that in a little bit, but I do feel bad for you because I think I even sent you a message. I'm like, oh man, that sucks.
Yeah, it was not the experience I wanted. Actually, neither of my nationals this year went particularly well. I went to CO Nats that I definitely did not perform the way I wanted to. The weather was a part of it, but just mentally I wasn't there. And then Open Nats, I was trying to bring it back home, and it did not happen. So
Hmm.
I tried.
Yeah. So Dan, for people who don't know you, who are you and how did you get into shooting?
Sure. So, for folks that don't know me on Instagram, I have an account called Sussex Gunworks, and another one called Good Guys Guns New Jersey. So, I run a gun store here in New Jersey, and work with two others in the area that are also named Good Guys Guns in New York and on Long Island. In you know, I got into shooting, I guess, competitive shooting probably about 2018 was my first USPSA match, if memory serves me right. I had never shot competition before that. Good friend of mine that I work with, I still work with him to this day, said, "Hey, you should come out and shoot with us." And sort of the rest is history. I started with a Sig 226 and said that was the greatest thing since sliced bread. I did that in production for a little while, and yeah, I did matches on and off for the first year and a half, 2 years, and then I think well, I was in grad school at the time too, so it was tough to really commit time to matches when I was still doing night school and everything. But when that was done, I finally said, 2020, late 2020 to 21, I started to really focus on it and, um, really try to invest in myself and invest in the skills and do that. Through the way, developed an affinity for the SIG 320. I've run one of those since about 2019. Up until I'd say recently, I had been running one, and I think that's how people may know me or know of the company that I run. I got one said this trigger is terrible, which I still stand behind. The factory trigger is garbage. Especially coming from a 226, the reset one, it killed me. So it started few year experiment to figure out how I could improve it, and here we are. So I turned it into a side business that turned into opening up a gun store. So kind of interesting way it all works out.
Yeah, no, that is definitely it's for the better, right? Crappy triggers are crappy triggers. And we can't stand for those. We are trigger snobs at this point. But so
Yeah.
when you decided to go from the 226 to the 320, was it a regular basic the round chunky 320 or was it like the Legion or the X series?
So I was one of the earlier adopters of the X5 before it was the Legion X5. So it was the
Hmm.
actual original X5 that didn't have all of that. And, I thought it was a good way to get into it, optics ready and everything. And I'm sorry if you hear squeaking. My dog is playing with her squeak toy outside of my office here. And if it's coming through, I apologize.
It's okay because dog noise is acceptable. If Steve Anderson can have dog noise, so can we. And remember, all dogs are puppies. If anyone forgot that from last week's episode, all dogs are puppies.
Yeah, she is a 14-year-old Dutch Shepherd that still thinks she is a puppy, even though she's deaf and half blind, but she's still out there squeaking her little squeak toy.
Hey, that's the best life. Belly rubs, snacks, and squeaky toys.
That's
Who could
it.
complain? No, but that. So you said it was before the Legion came out. So you were
Yep,
you were OG X5. So that's pretty.
I was. I still have that one. I think it's at my gun store now. I have it sitting in a drawer somewhere because it turned into an experimental piece where I did a whole bunch of stuff. That was the first slide I used in an open build when I was first toying around with that idea. Which is a funny story of how that whole idea came to be. I'll explain a little bit, but yeah, it was one of the original X5s. I liked it because of the cost. I thought it was a good gun to get because you could put an optic on it. Silly me, I bought the one that only fit the Romeo 1, which is SIG's lame attempt at a first optic offering, I'll say nicely.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, I had to move on from there and bought other slides and stuff. And I think I've got 4 or 5 320s that are through the shop as R&D guns that I shoot for matches and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that is definitely cool. 320 is definitely an interesting beast of a platform. From the originals, the nobody liked it, and then the M17 came out. Then everyone started loving it again. The competition guns, and then I don't know if the military gun came out first or was it before or after they had the drop. They found out if you dropped it.
Yeah, I think it was. I don't have a gun with me in here. All of my stuff is at my shop, and I'm not there tonight. But
Yeah.
yeah, they found it. I think somebody was doing testing. If you dropped it right on the back edge of the slide, right where the beaver tail and the slide meet, if you hit that on the ground at a certain angle, the trigger shoe was actually heavy enough to overcome the spring and set the trigger off on its own. Because the triggers don't have sort of a step safety or anything like that like a Glock would have or anything like that, or a hinge
Mm-hmm.
trigger. They don't have anything like that. So, not ideal, but they did. I think they had that voluntary upgrade, and I kid you not, that was in it was at 2017. I think they identified that and started that correction. And I still occasionally see one come through the shop that has not been upgraded, and I promptly will not work on it and say, nope, that's going back to Sig first.
Mm-hmm. And then I'm assuming they'll send it back to you, and then you'll work on it.
Yeah, then at that point, I'm fine with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, might as well. Might take the liability out of your hands, right?
That's it. And the work I do doesn't work with the old style trigger shoe anyway. It just isn't going to fly with that design. So, you need the new setup, and I want the safeties in the system. They added the disconnector and the striker safety, which I think are very important. And I know you had Rob on last week. Clarify, I do not disengage the striker safety. In fact, that's probably one of the most important things that I make sure for every gun I touch, that I do not disengage that. It's actually a common thing a lot of people do with those dual adjustable triggers you can buy, like Armory Craft and all the other ones. I over adjust them, and then they're not safe at that point. So I'm very careful not to do that, and I check it on every gun that I touch.
Yeah, he just knows you put your magical wizardry in it, makes it better.
Definitely do some of that, right?
Yeah. So, so let me my questions because I'm gonna forget what I really want to talk about, but we'll get there as it is. So, when you got in the sport, did you find it miraculously by yourself, or did you stumble upon it, or how did that end up being?
Yeah, so I'd never heard of it before. It was a coworker of mine, Dan, who guy I still work with today, real good guy. He and I had gotten friendly through a project we were working on at work, and he had said, "Hey, I shoot competitively." We talked about guns. At the time, I was more of a rifle shooter and more into hunting than I was competitive shooting. And he'd said, "Hey, why don't you come out to the local match? We do them in New Jersey first Saturday of every month." And I said, "We do this in Jersey? Like that's a thing?" Could have fooled me, right? I would never have thought that's something that you do in New Jersey, but sure enough, it is. And it's called Shawangunk Sportsmen's Association, just outside of Hackettstown, New Jersey. And that went to the first match there, and I was hooked after the first one. I said, "This is awesome. I want to keep doing this." I didn't DQ the first time I was there, so that was a plus. Didn't do anything super dumb.
Hmm.
Had fun.
Yeah, and that's all you can ask for is having fun and not DQing. I mean, I just speaking, on the show, or I don't know if I talked about it on my live stream and all, but I took my wife to her first match. She shot a P320 X5 Carry Legion.
Yep.
So not a terrible gun. It still has some downsides for her, but nevertheless, we'll overcome them. But she had fun. She shot what she could shoot, and she didn't DQ. That was the whole point. So you're here to have fun.
Yep.
Don't DQ. That's all I'm asking.
Yeah, I tell that to everybody when we have new shooters. Everyone's like, because we have a couple of very high level shooters, a couple of GMs that'll shoot our match, and these guys that just go super fast. And I always tell people, don't try to replicate what you're seeing these people do. That's how you do something silly. Like, be safe, be slow, be careful. Right. The thing here today is to have fun and go home when everyone else does, not early.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. 100%. I definitely agree with that. it sucks to be the guy to have to send somebody home, but it's also educating them, but not making them feel like degraded about it too. It's like, it's what happened
Yep.
today, but we're gonna learn from this and move on. It's not the end of
Yeah.
the world. You always can come back next time. It's
That's it. I mean, we had a guy DQ the first three matches he came to for the same reason, hammer back, safety off, right into the holster. And even though we tried stopping him all three times, he still managed to get it all the way in the holster. And we're like, come on, man, you gotta work on not doing that. So we told him go buy a Sig 320 and stop shooting a CZ Shadow 2 until you get that built into your mind. So there's zero chance you DQ yourself for that.
mm-hmm.
And he did.
See, there you go. See, and some people just need, they don't need that fancy gun. They just need something that goes bang like a Glock or an M&P or a Sig. You don't have to worry about a safety. You don't have to worry about your hammer. Just make sure your fingers off the bang switch.
That's it.
Well, and I've seen like a couple of my buddies locally. They got competition guns like Canix or Shadow 2s, and they're just like, this is just not for me. I love this sport, but this gun is not for me. And they went back to whatever their duty grade pistol was anyway, and now they're having a blast again. So that's always cool.
Yep.
But so we talked a little bit. You're an early adopter with a P320. When the Legions came out, did you automatically upgrade, or did you piecemeal them, or just kind of wait it out?
To this day, I've still never bought a full Legion. I've always just piecemealed them together. I'm an engineer, right? So I'm a tinkerer. That's just my nature. I don't like to buy stuff pre-done. Shadow 2, I think, would be the only exception to that. I did recently pick up a Shadow 2 and a 2011 that were pre-done, right? But Shadow 2, I've already done work to, and 2011, I've taken apart. That's just the nature of it. But over the years, I bought more FCUs and just sort of built the things out to be a Legion. I think
Mm-hmm.
the only time I really went nuts is when SIG had I think it was a Max Michel slides available, special run of them with the gold barrel. And I ended up picking up one of those for the pure reason that it had the cutout for the Romeo 3XL. It's the only reason I did it because that's the only slide that comes with that cut, and I was too lazy to send it out somewhere, and I didn't want to put it into my mill and screw up a slide, so I ended up just buying one that way, and that's the only like Legion thing I've ever actually bought. So I bought stuff for the shop, but not for me personally.
Right, right. Now, I'm kind of curious. With your tungsten grip modules, have you ever thought about sending them, or have you sent them to Aaron English out of South Carolina?
What's he? No, I'm not familiar with him. What's he do
So,
with him?
so he does some really cool like grip modifications. He really makes that magwell into a magwell, like a carry optics grip
Ah,
mod.
yeah,
Like does a really nice, beveling and making it really nice and smooth and perfect, and fixing some of the geometries up on the frame. Well, on the grip, it's not the frame because the frame's inside, but neither
yeah.
are there. But he does some really cool work. If you haven't, Aaron English, AE shooting, I want to think he is on there, and he's doing he paused grip work for a while, so I didn't know if you actually have ever seen any of his, but very big down in
I
South
haven't.
Carolina.
That's good to know. I mean, I actually for Rob, I did a couple of similar setups for him. So I do silicon carbiding at the shop. I did two for him, and I've done a bunch of others for other people. And I've done some magwell enhancements. So I take the internal magwell, flare it out, and make it as wide as you possibly can, given the way it's set up.
Hmm.
Even like I have one in the shop I'm doing now. A guy wanted an X5 grip cut down to a carry length, but with a manual safety, which SIG doesn't sell on their own. At least I don't believe they do. So I took a full size one, threw it in the mill, cut it up, and did all the stuff to make it work. So like, it's interesting to know other people do that. I think there's definitely a market for it.
Yeah. Well, the best part about the grip module is not a regulated part. That's the best thing. Is like you can buy them and
Yep.
ship them wherever and be like, it's a hunk of plastic. It's
I
an
mean, if you
expensive piece
screw
of
it up,
plastic.
like, yeah, it's always one of those too. Like, as the shop, right? I get people send me stuff in sometimes, and at least if you're doing silicon carbide on a 320, and for whatever reason, if you screw up or a customer knocks on the door while the epoxy's curing or something, like it's a $200 mistake. Do it on a Glock, it's a $700 mistake, right? Because there's no replacing just a lower frame, not easily at least. So yeah, that is definitely a plus, and it's why they're nice to work on. They're more forgiving if you screw up. I'll say that.
Right. Exactly. They're very much more forgiving. It's not like a Glock you said, or you mess up a part of your like a 2011, and you're like, well, great, now yeah,
Yeah, I got to go call Chile for another $650 set of steel grips, right?
yeah. ccgunworks.com. That's a trick. No, Matt's a good dude though. Honestly, I've been to his shop. I've been to his shop once and met his shop dog. A little vicious, a little thing. It's so it's like it's always the smallest dogs. It's like
Yep.
it was a miniature. I think it's a min pin.
The thing is
Mhm.
so short and so little skinny legs, and it's like bark, 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 bark. I'm so vicious. I'm like, you are not scary, dog. Like, go back and lay down on your warm little bed. But
It's
no,
funny. Dogs
Matt's
have the
cheap.
complex.
Yeah, they always. It seems like all the little dogs do, and it's just funny. But it's just also like big dogs. They have that little the little baby personality. They're just like, I'm so cute. I will
Yep.
cuddle and lay on your lap, even though I'm a horse.
Hmm.
But where's it going with this? Oh, so when you got in the sport, um, you started in 2018. Did you jump into carry optics right away? Well, after production, was it carry optics right away, or did you linger there for a while?
I only shot production for 1 year. I think I made C class in production. Like I never really focused on it.
Hmm.
I did shoot Area 8 in 2019 as production and happened to take home the D class production title of Area 8, which I'm still very proud of. Everyone makes fun of me for that, but I still hold on to it. I thought it was quite comical.
Do you still hang
If
it
I
on the
was in
wall
my
though?
basement, it's at my shop actually. Yeah, it's at the gun store. I have it hanging on the wall there, along with a couple other ones I've gotten over the years. But that one was funny, and I shot that alone. I didn't know a single person on the squad. All the guys locally that I shoot with shot on Saturday. I ended up shooting on Sunday because I think I set up for the match very late. It was at Antalani out in Pennsylvania. So imagine a guy like me coming from Jersey, only shooting a local match. I had never shot anything else. And the local match we shoot is, I'd say, very two dimensional. We have a pretty like we have a rifle bay that's set up that we put up stages on, and a little pistol pit. And with the two, you sort of limited as to how much you can really get creative with like running in, running out, and all that. There's only so much real
Hmm.
estate you have to work with. And then I go out and go to the match known for all of their shenanigans and all the different kinds of stuff that Vicky and Anthony set up. It was a wild experience for my first major. Thankfully, didn't DQ myself and somehow managed to win production D class. Um, and that was, I think, the last match I shot that season. The next year, I had the 320, and I started shooting into carry optics shortly thereafter,
Hmm.
and decided that was more my style. And that's
Right.
why I shot for 3.5 years. The first I shot limited once or twice in there to mess around with it. So like I think it was 2020. I built a Legion in 40 cal, which at the time no one had. I think I was one of the first people to really build one that actually worked.
Hmm.
And then I know like Mason had built one, and Phil Strader had one done by Greg Gonza. So there was others out there, but I built one early on, the 5 inch barrel and everything, and I thought it was an interesting idea, and I realized I'm not good with the bumpy things. I don't have the visual patience for that, and said, you know what, back to dot life, and then
Hmm.
shot CO ever since.
Right. Well, and like I make fun of everybody. I'm like, how did the bumpy things work again? I always say that every time hands me a gun with irons. I'm like, I don't know what this thing is. It's like, I mean, I know what the gun is, but it's always like, what is this shit? I don't see no glowy thing on top. I can't work this.
You'll laugh. The last time I shot iron sights at a match was I shot my Glock 20 from concealment because I felt like being a silly person and said 10 mil from concealment is definitely the way to go with a full size Glock 20. And I shot reasonably well with it, albeit managing recoil. But that's a little silly. Like double taps are not what you want them to be. It's like target high dirt. Like a
Right.
little bit going on there.
Did you have brass chickens following you around with like a butterfly net to catch your brass?
No, because no one else shoots 10 mil.
Well,
Not by me.
I'll tell this story. In my home club, Oak Hill Gun Club, we have a guy for years. God, I got these hiccups, guys. It's horrible. But this guy who shoots a Glock 40. I think that's the 10 mil, like the really long
That's the
slide one.
the longest. I have one at
The
the shop. They're just
so
silly.
a Glock 40 in carry optics, and he's shooting it, and we're like, ooh, 10 mil, ooh, 10 mil. I mean, we reload out of necessity, but I'll pick up the 10 mil and whatnot. And then just throw them at some of the guys who actually care about it. It's like, here, you owe me like $5 because I picked it up.
Yeah,
I think we finally
I
convinced
don't.
him to shoot 9 mil though.
Yeah, it's just not the right. If you have it and it works and it's all you got, that's fine. But my God, at least if you're gonna do, at least put 40 cal through it. You can run 40 Smith and Wesson through a Glock 10. A little rough on the extractor, but you can get away with it for a while.
Hmm.
I've done it just to mess around. I wouldn't. Please don't hear me as saying that's a recommendation to anyone. I'm not. I'm not looking for the emails and the lawsuits, but I know it can be done.
Yep. feel bad. There's someone probably they might make a conversion barrel for it too, just to be for the shits and giggles.
Barstow does. Barstow makes. I mean, I use them for all the barrel work I do for the open guns. They do a lot of. They'll make anything you want, frankly speaking.
Right. Yeah. And recently, what was it? End of or the middle of last year, you finally decided you're going to dabble or switch to open.
It's. I think the story of how I got into open is kind of comical, right? So I think it was 2021. I think it was 2021. A bunch of guys I shoot with locally, they call themselves, and me as part of it, the Shenanigans Squad, and the title is very appropriate. We were looking at matches to do, and a few guys said, "Hey, why don't we go shoot race gun nats?" And I said, "Well, I don't have a race gun." So somebody in the group, Jason, made a comment to me. He's like, "Well, why don't you just build a 320 open gun?" And that sent me and my engineer brain on an adventure. And first, I started with a slide ride gun, and then I built a full frame mounted open gun. It went through a lot of iterations over the last couple of years, but that's when I first started messing around with it, and I did it on and off here and there. Still with CO was my primary,
Mm-hmm.
and then this past year I wanted to really after CO Nats, because it was early in the year, I wanted to switch to open after that and run the 320 open gun as far as I could. I ran it at Dragons Cup 2 years ago. I made ran fine the whole match. I think I had one of them had like 10 or 11,000 rounds through it before of 9 major before the plastic grip finally cracked. And then I switched to the aluminum grip after that.
Oh, like the AXG grip?
Yeah, that was the one I like. If I haven't built one in a while for somebody, the last one I built was for a local guy here that was looking for one. They're one of those things that the price point of building one is they're not super cheap just because SIG's parts are not cheap to start with.
Mm-hmm.
And the barrel work and everything to get it all to actually support 9 majors, not exactly the easiest thing to do. But now I would only do it in an aluminum grip, or the Brower steel grip is interesting. I've talked to those guys quite a bit. I saw them out at SHOT Show, so I'm going to send a note to them to have one made that doesn't have the pockets they cut in it, so I can build an open frame based on it and see how that behaves. The steel frame should be ideal for that. But the aluminum frame worked fine too. I had no issues with that. The only issues I've ever had with the damn thing was magazines. Getting them to feed was always the issue. That's what stopped me at Open Nats this past year. The magazines just would not feed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those things that everyone says, "Why don't you check it?" Well, being in New Jersey, I can't check a high cap mag. There's nowhere to go. Even as an FFL, I'm allowed to have them, but I still can't just go to the local indoor range and drop 30 rounds through a magazine. They're not going to be friendly with that.
Mm-hmm.
So the first time I ever ran the mags was at nationals, and nope, they did not work.
Yeah. Now here's my question: if you decided to only run 140s, would it have been a better situation?
It it was helping it. So most of the issue I had was the followers I was using just didn't have enough support, so the round was dipping um, into the magazine rather than into the feed ramp. And part of that's because I use a very light recoil spring on that gun deliberately, and it's coming back too fast. And it's just pushing around down rather than up. So it's a mix between spring tension not being enough, and I had the wrong type of follower in it. A guy on my squad had another open 320 I had built, a good friend of mine, and his ran fine with the magazines. He had another issue with the ejection pattern being erratic. That we figured out what the issue was with that after the match, unfortunately. But neither of the two we took ran particularly well. What are you going to do? That's what R&D is all about, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, and then being the pain in the butt, having to go to Chrono either multiple times or here's my pile of guns I've touched.
So I love this sport, right? So I have to give a shout out to obviously Brandon's one of my squad mates and his wife Emily. They happen to bring an extra Venom custom with them because they have three because that's what people do. And they handed me exactly right.
Well, they,
And
they just had a kid. Well, not from now. It's if he's probably about a year or more now, right? Isn't he?
Lucas is just over 2, if I'm not
Oh
mistaken.
dang! Wow,
Yeah,
it has been a minute then. But yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Okay, I will present.
Yeah,
That'll be
Emily is
great.
someone worth talking to. If you haven't talked to her on the show, I think her dedication to the sport and her involvement in it, I think is really cool. And obviously her husband Brandon's a phenomenal shooter. He wins almost every match he shoots at. So between the two of them, she's a phenomenal shooter, and they're just great people. So they finally convinced me to stop trying to shoot the 320 after I thought I fixed it and then had another stage where it just shit the bed. So at that point, they handed me their open gun. Another guy on the squad, he gave me his holster and rig that didn't fit me, so I had to go figure that out. And then the range master Russ grabbed me and gave me a ride up to Chrono to go get stuff sorted out there. Unfortunately, I didn't chrono the gun, so I shot the entire 3-day match and didn't know if I was going to make chrono until the very last stage. Chrono was like our second to last stage, so it was a little bit nerve wracking. So I'm shooting my ammo through another person's gun that I had never shot it with. Thankfully, it made power factor was like 174 through the 320 and like 168 through his Venom custom. So it worked.
Right, because you
thankfully.
weren't. I'm assuming you didn't have popple holes in your open gun. It was just ports.
Yeah, it's just ports. Yeah, 5-inch barrel with ports, and then his gun was a 5-inch barrel with I think 3 popple holes or 4. I can't remember how many. And I knew it would bleed feet per second. I wasn't sure how many. Thankfully, not that many. I was shooting Everglades that they make the 124 grain 9 major, so that's what I had been running. Worked well for what it was.
Yeah, and that's always the risky business, right? Of even anybody trying to offer like 9 major, because no one can ever certify it because the problem is all guns are different. There's no. This is an open gun.
Yeah, and Everglades is interesting. They make 9 major, right? But it's semi overall length, so you have to be careful because it'll chamber in a regular gun if you've got a chamber that's cut a little deep. So you don't need to throat them all the time, and that's always a concern with that from a safety point of view. It also means the pressure's crazy high in those things. So I know people like to say that SIGs blow up, and I know I've seen a ton of it online. I mean, I've got probably 20,000 rounds of 9 majors through it was a Barstow barrel, mind you, but same basic design. I've never seen an issue with it personally.
Right. So speaking of now, like they finally just Brandon and Emily just made you finally see the light, right? And I saw you
They
shoot a
did.
video of a true 2011. What is your open gun at this point then?
So I have a 2011. It's a custom build based on Chile frame and grip, done by a guy down in Alabama. It was a Competition Sports Solutions, I think is the name of it. I bought it secondhand, but the guy down there built it. Phenomenal
Okay.
build. Looks a lot like an Atlas. Runs 38 Super Comp. Um, you know, I I was pretty resistant to buy a 2011 at first, and it was mainly because I was sort of convinced I wanted to run the 320 open gun, and I think it's still a viable platform if I want to spend a little more time figuring out magazines. Like I think that's the only real piece I had. Like longevity of the frame and slide and all that stuff and safety, I'm not worried about any of that stuff. They make them in 357 SIG, which is just as hot as 9 majors, so I'm not really concerned about that. And with the aluminum grip, I wasn't worried about longevity of the grip holding up or anything like that. But I got 2011 mainly because I said, well, I own a gun store. I do gunsmithing work. I should probably learn how to work on 2011s because it seems to be an underserved market. Um, there's not many people that work on them, so I figured out why not. It's a good investment for the shop and for myself. And then I shot it and said, holy crap, this thing's amazing. 38 Super Comp's a whole other world. That gun runs so flat, it's crazy. I think the first time I ever took it out, I think it was like top 5 at Anzalani, which is crazy because I don't normally do that well there, and I had never shot that gun before, and I also took off my thumbnail in the process because thumb high don't work with the racker.
Yeah, that's definitely especially when I switched to an open gun. That was the trick, right? Is keep your damn thumb out the fucking way because that's gonna.
Well,
Cause,
yeah, I got the really low zig racker. I can't. They never have the tall one in
oh, like
stock.
the
So
ape
one day
hanger.
I'll bend it. Yeah, that's what it's called. I can never find them in stock, so I have the low boy, which is fine like 88% of the time, but I need to bend it up just a hair. I just haven't gotten around to it. All my aluminum parts for the gun are out with Chris Galnett getting anodized for like the third time or something like that. We had some issue with the anodizer, so I can't
Yeah.
shoot the gun yet, unfortunately. I haven't shot it since I think December.
Oh yeah. So besides you bought it secondhand, did you really want 38 Super Comp, or was it just because it
I
was
don't
available?
I don't reload, so I just don't have the patience for it, and I just don't have the time, quite frankly, right now. I think I used to, but with the store and my full time job, I just don't have enough time to really invest in it, and I don't want to buy like a Mark Seven and really get into the money with it. It's just the amount I shoot, I just didn't make sense. So I figured if I'm gonna go all in, I might as well go in with the best, right? 38 Super Comp just runs better than 9 Major, right? And it's better for what you're trying to do with it. It's just more in tune for it, and it's easier on the gun. The barrels, the frames, the slides, they'll last a little bit longer. Just the chamber pressure is lower. Um, that's why I went that way. And if you look at 38 Super Comp versus 9 Major commercially available, it's about the same price. A
Hmm.
lot more than reloading, but not a variable that I needed to consider.
Right. Yeah. And honestly, it's safer case volumes and all around a
Yeah,
little
and
bit
this
better.
Yeah, and John from Outdoor Dynamics sent me a couple to try when he was building up his recipe for 38 Super Comp, and that stuff was wild. I mean, it ran great, ran hot, 174, felt great, gun was flat. I haven't run more of it yet because I still have other stuff I got to burn through. But once I'm through that, I'll be buying from John. His stuff is great.
Yeah, he does everything he can to support the shooting sports. Speaking of John at
Yep.
Outdoor Dynamics, make sure you use the code Manny for 5% off your order because we got to support and show him how awesome I do at supporting and marketing him. But yeah, so go check him out, guys. Definitely a good dude. I did get a picture. I mean, this might not be relevant at the time, but I got a really cool picture of something that's coming that everybody wants in their order. So just tell John you want the special secret sauce and you might get it.
Very nice.
But yeah, so yeah, you're shooting the open gun now, but oh Lord. But if you were your perfect 320, right? If you were gonna brand a 320 and call it, the Sussex Gunworks full build kit out, what is that pistol?
Yeah, I actually think it's a limited optics gun, right? I think that's what I found to be the best use case for that firearm. I built a limited optics setup, and you don't have to go nuts with it to get there, right? But I make like a thumb rest specific for 320s that's mounted to the frame. It's not one of the ones that's a takedown lever safety, takedown lever. I'm sorry, thumb rest, which they're nice and all, but they're generally not in the right spot for most people. They're a little too far back. So I have one that mounts directly to the frame, and if you're in limited optics, excuse me, you can do that. That with some brass and some tungsten goodies. I mean, that gun, I ended up, I said, third place at Area 8 in limited optics with that gun, right behind, I think Tim Harris, like 1 or 2% behind him and a few behind Shane Coley. And I mean, I'm not that good, so the gun helped, right? I think that gun would be my ideal gun. So it's a tungsten frame, a tungsten grip, I'm sorry, the THG grip, the brass magwell from Springer Precision, the tungsten grip insert, the tungsten guide rod, any of the Legion X5 uppers are fine. You don't have to go crazy. And then the thumb rest that I have, I think that combo ran absurdly well for me. Everyone I've handed it to has loved it, and that gun's not that pricey to build for the all being considered. Like talking if you can look at a 2011 slide ride 2011, the entry in that's like 3,500 or 4 grand. You can build a full 320 for limited optics for 15, 1,600 if you have an optic, a little more if you're going to add the optic, but so be it.
Right, yeah. And honestly, it's gonna be popular. Limited optics is gonna be the new hotness. I don't know how they're gonna figure out how they're gonna split everything or keep it together, keep them separate together. I don't know. But it's going to grow in popularity, right? I don't necessarily know if it's going
Yeah.
to take away from it might take a little bit from carry optics, but it's definitely going to take from open. Um, Although people say open's going to be dead, and I say bullshit because people still want to shoot the flattest, fastest guns, and they want to drag race.
Yeah.
They're gonna shoot open.
And people like to flaunt their money, right? It doesn't matter, right? People, there's still a market for people spending 6 to 10 grand on a gun, and they're not going to let it sit in the safe. They want to run it and they want to show it off, right?
Yes.
So,
Hmm.
no better place.
Well, and I is a broke bitch, but I have an open gun.
Believe me, they're not cheap. I was thankful I got one on the used market because there's no way in hell I was spending 7 or 8 grand. I actually was going to build one before I found to find this particular gun. I was just going to build my own. I mean, I have the equipment to do it. I just have never really spent the time to get into it. And local guy here knows how to walk me through the process in case I do something dumb, which helps.
Right. Having a guy to help you out when you're dumb, that is always the good part, right?
That's how we all learn, right?
Right, exactly. So, why did you decide to get into the FFL space?
Ironically, it started through this trigger work. I was doing the trigger work sort of on the side, and you really can't do too much of that and make money on it with the way the ATF's rules are. So I did a couple freebies early on and said, okay, I think there's something to this, and found a store in New York that was willing to work with me. So I did some, just per diem work out of their store for people for a while, and through that through that relationship sort of realized, hey, we have a mutual interest here. They liked what I was doing. I liked the idea of getting into the industry, and they said they needed a store in New Jersey, and I said, well, okay, well, I live in New Jersey, let's see how we make this happen. And a year, almost 2 years later, I finally was able to get a store opened up last year. The zoning and all that in this state is not simple to work with, to put it nicely.
Hmm.
It took a while. I tried to do it out of my house, home FFLs, but New Jersey kind of shot that down pretty harshly. So I ended up needing to find a storefront. So I do have a small shop. I mean, it's nothing crazy, but it's something to start with, right?
Hmm. Yeah, there's Not that there's not, but there's a lot of, at least I think there's a lot of, at least where I live in Michigan, a decent amount of people have FFLs in, running out of their home. But it's kind of nice when you can have the separation, you're not all your crap. You don't have to worry about, well, this safe is mine and this safe is the shop's. And it's like, the shop safe is at the shop.
Yeah, and just security and safety, right? Like, they're two separate entities. From a liability point of view, it's two separate things. So, like, there's a true separation of personal and private and corporation. So, it's a corporation I have that runs all of that. So, I am very deliberate to keep a clean separation of all that stuff. This is a litigious society, and firearms are something that are litigated heavily. And sooner or later, I'll get pulled into something, right? I just need to make sure that I got myself protected.
Oh, 100%. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, especially since you live in New Jersey and you have silly magazine restrictions and a silly place called Newark with a terrible airport.
Yeah, you're telling me about it. Yeah, our regulations here are so silly. The stuff I have to deal with. Even I had a customer buy a Smith and Wesson M&P 22 the other day, and even that in New Jersey is technically considered an assault weapon. So I have to go do all sorts of stuff to make it New Jersey legal. It's just so silly. Like, it's a 22, guys. Calm down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, it's funny. I took a trip to New Jersey for a work. Well, I was going to Allentown, Pennsylvania, which didn't know is 20 miles from Montalani. And now if that was
You
during the
missed
shooting,
out.
yeah, and it was in December. I'd have been like, oh, this would have been cool if this was during the shooting season. I would have been like, I'm going to Montalani, y'all.
I think I think if I recall, the most popular USPSA match in the country. I saw some article that was put out not that long ago in terms of average attendance. I think there's 200 people a month that shoot that match or close to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a major. It's literally a sectional match every month. It's wild. They do such a good match there. I'm fortunate to have it 2 hours from my house.
Yeah, so you're like all the way up in probably what, northern Jersey then?
Yeah, I live in a town called Sparta. So
Yes,
yes, I
yes,
know.
Sparta.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Sorry, I
Um,
couldn't control
everyone does
myself.
it. Um, yeah, so I'm up in that area. It's up in the very northern sort of, I'll call it mountainous area of New Jersey. So it's a nice area, nice place to live. It's not terribly close to Newark, which is good. It's a good
Hmm.
45 minutes from there, but close to the PA border and New York border, frankly. I mean, I'm sort of in this weird spot where we've got matches in, of all places, Staten Island. Staten
Hmm.
Island holds two USPSA matches a month, which you told me on one of the boroughs of Manhattan or one of the boroughs of New York City, there would be two USPSA matches. I tell you, you were crazy, but there are two of them, and they hold a major match there every year. Yeah, it's a wild setup how it works, and
Hmm.
the whole 10 round thing is comical there for a major.
Hmm.
You've got Lipsat on Long Island; they're about 3 hours from me, but they hold some phenomenal matches out there, out in the Hamptons. Which again, where would you think you'd be a USPSA match out in the Hamptons? No, but there is.
Hmm.
Um, there used to be a USPSA match up in Black Rock, New York, but I think the guy who runs that, Mike Shadalov, really good GM, great guy. I think he is doing hit factor matches now. I won't get into that further. And then Antalani and a couple other PA matches aren't that far. So North Jersey's a weird spot. You get a lot of good matches. I think there's like 10 I counted or 11 monthly matches within the area. And some of them run all year round. Like the local I go to runs year round. As long as it's not icy, we'll hold a match.
Right. My biggest complaint about Jersey, well, besides it's overpopulated, at least in Newark, is the fact that I can't pump my own gas. It absolutely
Yeah,
drove me insane. Handing my credit
we're
card to somebody else.
I think we're the only state now left. I think Oregon was the only other one, and I think they recently changed it last year, the year before. So I think we're now the only state that still requires an attendant to pump fuel. And I still don't listen to it. When I take my car out, I do not let people pump gas in that thing, mainly because I've had people put the wrong type of fuel in it, which is not bueno. So I'm not about that.
Yeah, especially if you got a high performance car or something that, yeah, you don't
I've got
risk
a
it.
supercharged Mustang, so the last thing I need is somebody putting regular fuel in that thing. It ain't gonna run, and that's how you send a rod to space. And I'm not doing that.
Yeah. So you're one of those weird, you'll have to get out and be like, no, I'm pumping my gas. Leave me be.
Pretty much, I'm like, I got it. Thanks.
Yeah. Here's your $5. Leave me alone. Go back to your
They're,
booth.
they, I go to the place around the corner. They know me. They don't give me a hard time, and
Oh, well, that's
they
good.
know they get the gist, right? Most people know, like bikers too. Like you're not going to have somebody on a Harley like pump the gas. No, no, no. The guy on the Harley is going to pump the gas, not somebody else.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, it was funny because when I went to Jersey, I called, but the only Jersey resident I really know, Mr. Matt Hempel. You know,
Oh yeah, that's a great guy.
he didn't even answer the phone, and I said, Your state is crap. You know, I can't pump my own gas. Nobody knows how to drive here. They're freaking bunch of ding dongs." He didn't answer. It was okay. I left him a voicemail. He never called me back either.
Yeah, Hempel's a great dude. I love that guy. Yeah, we've talked duck hunting, cars, everything for a long time. He's a great guy.
Yeah, he just needs to. If he decided to just make content about fixing up shitty cars or whatever he does with his shitty cars, he'd be better off than if he was shooting at the moment. But it's no big deal. So at the shop in Jersey, like, I'm assuming it's a full service FFL, right?
Yep. Yeah, we do sales, transfers, gunsmithing work. Like I'll do just about anything. I just built a bunch of uppers this weekend for someone, made them Jersey legal. So break out the TIG welder and make all the muzzle devices permanent, all the fun stuff. I'm only open a couple days a week. Typically I work a couple nights and then I'm there most of the day Sunday. Eventually I'll get someone in to help me, but for right now it's just a side gig for me and it's full service. We try to do everything we can.
Now, is it mostly getting things? Well, what do you sell? What do you bring in the most? I'm assuming then.
You know what you'd laugh. What I sell the most of is Springfield Hellcats. Um, People love those things, and I think a lot of it's. I get a lot of new shooters. So New Jersey, right? With the Supreme Court decision with concealed carry, New Jersey's been issuing concealed carry licenses for the first time like ever. And with world events, right? People are more interested in protecting themselves. So you get a lot of people coming in with their first purchase. They want to go get a CCW for the first time, and people seem to be very attracted to the Hellcat. It fits people's hands well. It's a relatively inexpensive gun, so that and 365s are what I sell the most of. People just seem to like them. So for those, I don't have to do any compliance work. Those are nice. But then I got guys wanting to get full built ARs, which getting an AR in Jersey is fine, but it's got to have no features or only one feature and all that jazz.
Yeah, so that's got to be disappointing. I guess I don't even want to dive down that. Well, I guess I'm curious. What's the feature that most people elect to keep then?
The detachable box magazine and the pistol grip, that's the big one. Like New York, you can't have detachable box magazines in semi-automatic rifles. So people, they don't have that option. In Jersey, you can still have a fully functioning AR. The main thing we do is we remove the adjustability of the stock. So you can't have a collapsible or telescoping stock in New Jersey. And you can't have accessible threads or a flash hider. So we put muzzle brakes on and weld them on, and that's the end of that. And that's good to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
And
just gotta be
obviously the
said.
10 round mag nonsense.
Silly 10 round bags. At least
Yeah.
they're not like California that has like locked magazines, and yeah, it's a pain in the butt.
They're still locked. I still got to put pins in them or weld them or epoxy them or something. Like, it's still, there's nothing worse than when somebody buys like a Springfield Echelon, right? Echelons, they don't sell 10 round mags for it. So I got to take this nice gun, 17 round mag, and then put a stupid block and epoxy in it or a Prodigy. Guys buy Prodigies, right? I've had a couple sell and I got to go ruin a 2011 mag. It's not the thing I love the most.
Right. Well, the one thing I will say, at least Canada got this right. I mean, the rivet thing, like they can just rivet their mags, which is still silly to
Yeah, I
me.
mean, yeah, the state here is interesting on their opinion of it. It's funny, the ATF doesn't care. The ATF, I talk to them, they're like, yeah, you do whatever you want. We don't care. That's a state thing. The state's like, no, 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 it's got to be this specific way. I'm like, okay, whatever.
Hmm. Yeah, it's okay. You get to play arts and crafts with magazines.
It's exactly what it is. The best way to describe it.
Well, that's cool. I mean, and it gives you a space, to do your trigger work. Speaking of trigger work, how did you come up with the shoe design?
So the shoe design's a factory shoe design. I use a SIG standard shoe. I just modify some of the internal geometry to make it work and kind of get rid of some of the play and all of that. I used another companies for a long time, a company called Carries Dynamics. They made nice trigger shoes, but I think they got bought and then went out of business or something or the other. I don't, you can't get them anymore is all I know. So obviously as a entrepreneur, figure out I got to find another way and stick with SIG is probably the best way to do it. So I use a factory SIG trigger shoe, very specific one that they sell, but it's the best one for that purpose. I have designed my own trigger shoe that I have in testing. I just haven't really put it out there more. It's one of those things that I don't know what the market is really for it, and I don't know if it's worth my time to time and money and effort to really get it going.
Hmm.
So one day it's just, like anything else, it's a priority when I get to it.
Right. So you're saying, so like if I looked at your Instagram, one of the the top things, so that's a factory sig trigger shoe then?
If it's a silver trigger shoot, no, that's the one that's from
Okay.
Carry's Dynamics.
Hmm.
So that's one that's in my personal gun just because I happen to have it. But I can do the there's a video on there showing the reset and all that stuff. I can achieve the exact same thing with a factory flat trigger shoe. Actually, the curve too. Both the flat and the curve work perfectly with that. They'll be
Gotcha.
identical. And
Yeah.
I have some of those shoes available if somebody really wants one. I bought like a last stock of them as they were available, but yeah, I don't advertise that I have them. It's just if somebody like already has one that I did and wants to replace it, that's what it's for.
Gotcha. Makes sense. They're very nice. They're a very aesthetically appeasing, appealing shoe.
Oh, that center ribbon, it is really nice. Like I didn't like it when I first set the gun up, but then I shot it more and more, and I was like, you know what, I really like this setup, and you know, I'll look forward to the day I can get my shoe out on the market and get it through enough testing to be comfortable getting it out there. I think it'll be able to fill a nice gap that's not really being served right now.
Hmm. Now on your, I see your frame mount. Would that fit in a bucket holster, or does that have to be in a race holster?
That's got to be in a race holster. I
Well,
shouldn't say it.
let me rephrase that.
The
I shouldn't say
ghost
frame mount. I mean your thumb rest. I apologize. Your thumb rest.
that depends on the holster. Like a Ghost Hydra might work, but it's meant for like a double Alpha Academy, like a true open holster. That's
Okay.
what it was designed around, and what I think it's best meant for.
Gotcha. Makes sense. It's very aesthetically pleasing too, and it's nice.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the whole idea behind that is that any traditional thumb rest you would buy won't be in the right position on the 320 because of the way the frame sits, the way the grip sits, and you have the takedown lever because
Yeah.
that thing's got to rotate. So that's designed to work around all that stuff already being there, so you can bolt it to the frame once and never have to worry about it again. Now, I mean, it's not as I would say as clean of an install as doing like a takedown lever one, but you get more adjustability because of that. So you can put it wherever the hell you want, and it'll work perfectly.
Yes, that is pretty legit. That is the one
And
thing
it's
I
not going to move. So some of the ones that go on the takedown lever, if you push on it too hard, it starts to rotate the lever, and it's like you don't want to rotate that because that's how the gun comes out of battery when you're shooting. You don't want that. Trust me.
hmm Yeah, you definitely don't want that. So you mentioned throughout the show, God, these hiccups are, I don't know what it is today, but you mentioned throughout the show, you help run a match in Jersey. What match is that?
Shawangum Sportsmen's Association. So it's a small local match. I think it's a really good beginners match, is what I'd call it. It's where I started. 25, 30 minutes from my house. I run it with three other guys. There's a true match director, Ron, great guy, who's been doing it for I think 20 plus years, and then three other guys, me and two other guys plus him that help run it day to day or month to month. Stage designs and getting all the fun stuff and the admin stuff sorted out.
Hmm. And I'm assuming this is the one where it kind of looks like you have one big bay and you stack a bunch of stages right next to each other.
Yeah, so we do half the match on a rifle bay. So we try to do 6 stages a match, 5, 6 if we can. And what we end up doing is typically like a classifier and two speed shoots, or a all steel stage and a speed shoot down on a rifle range. So everything's vertical. There's really not a lot of angled shots because the berms really aren't set up for that. And
Hmm.
then we have a pistol pit on the other half of the range there that has full visibility through the full 180 if you want.
Hmm.
Um, and that's where we can do a little bit more creativity with more traditional major match stage designs, and throw a little bit more challenge out there. And then with the 10 rounds, it's you can do a lot with a 10 round stage to really mess with people. Or what I should say is you can, with like a 32 round stage, really set up targets in a funny way to make you have to think.
Well,
So
and make people actually have to still reload, right? You
oh
can't just
yeah.
get lazy with these rune tactical followers in your P320s and get 25 plus one in the gun, or what is it,
No.
24 plus one in the gun?
Yeah, and then I think Keanu Sai's got a follower and a spring combo that'll do 25 plus one. I haven't tried them in the SIGs, but supposedly they work. I mean, other people have tried them. I tried them in my open gun when I built that. And to be clear, his followers were not the issue I had at Nationals. I was using a different follower, but I did try his beforehand, and I was fitting 30 in a big stick, and it's in a SIG, which I don't know. Like SIG sells a 30 round mag, but it doesn't fit the gauge. This is a 30 round mag that fit the gauge and had room to spare.
Hmm.
So yeah, it was a pretty cool setup using think I had Henning follower or Henning base pads, if I'm not mistaken.
Hmm.
I think that's what I had. I got to double check.
Yeah. No, that is just it's just so crazy, the technology and people on springs and followers and cramming as many bolts, and you know, it just shows everyone wants to shoot open division but doesn't want to pay for open division, but they want open mags.
Absolutely. And only having 10 rounds really, I think, keeps that reload requirement pretty interesting. And you'll see people that, like, good people shoot production. They're not that far off of open and CO at our matches because there's just not enough advantage anymore, which is kind of interesting to see.
Hmm.
Um, and one benefit is when we go to matches that have like a standard stage and everyone's laughing, like, oh, I have to reload. I'm like, I do this 3, 4 times a stage. I don't even think about it anymore. It's just automatic. Keep going.
Right. So I see also, if looking at your Instagram, 90, like almost 99% of your stuff is you know, with an optic cover, like a target focus trainer or a dot occlusion tool. Has that do you use that all the time, or is it most of the time, or what's the breakdown?
All the time. I put it on probably 2 years ago. I know it's a crutch, and some people will say it's not meant to be used permanently. I'm sold on it. It just works better with my eyes. I think I'm very visually impatient, and the the occlusion tool helps me track the dot better, so I can get a better visualization the second time. I also like to run the dot as dim as physically possible, and having a black cover there allows you to really keep it dim. I don't like the way my eyes work. I don't like a lot of things moving in my vision. So a bright red dot bouncing up and down on my vision just this doesn't work for me. It's distracting, and I end up looking at the dot, not the target.
Hmm.
So I found target focus works for me. Even my concealed carry gun has the dot covered. Like, that's how weird I am with it. That's what I've done for everything. I'm just used to it, and that's what I like.
Hmm. No, there's nothing wrong. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I mean, some people would argue that it is, but if it
I
helps
think
you stay target focused and have good hits on paper, do rock on, right?
I think with steel is where I saw the biggest difference. Is it forced me to be a little bit more deliberate with an aimed shot on steel, so not just aiming at the steel, aiming at the calibration zone on the steel. So, like, cognitively, my shots didn't slow down at all, but it was forcing me mentally to be a little bit more focused on where it was going. Quite frankly, the only real downside to the whole thing is when you're leaning around a wall, you have to be a little bit more careful about over axis, how high the dot is over the bore, and make sure that you know your holdover. I have definitely shot a wall or two unintentionally because I thought I had the clearance and I did not.
Yeah, match director is probably like, "Darn you, Dan! You shot my wall."
Yeah, I've damaged many walls either with that or racking a dot off a wall. I've done that a couple times, and I'm not the nicest on equipment. I'm good at breaking things.
Right. Yeah, that isn't here nor there, right? It always you always got to be breaking something. If it's not guns, it's walls. But no.
Yep.
But so you're liking the dot occlusion. It's something I did for a while. I haven't gotten back into it, but I probably should as a trainer. I'm still waiting on oh god, what is this code? Stonebridge Gunworks to make a RTS2 cover.
hmm
But
I mean,
now go
I
ahead.
used a piece of black electrical tape for a long time. I have the Stonebridge Gunworks covers now, mainly because of an experience at Nationals when the RO at Chrono was very adamant that I remove the dot cover, and I had a piece of tape, and I was like, I really can't because if I take it off, I'm not getting it back on. Um, he was not very happy with me. He shot it, and then the next guy after me also had a dot cover, and the guy didn't know how to hold the gun and shoot with both eyes open and shot the chrono at nationals. So I don't think he was very happy with us. But I've since then I've gotten the plastic cover so you could just take it on and off. It makes life easy. And frankly, if someone else picks up the gun, knowing that I give people the guns at most matches to test and try if they want, I want it to be something that anyone can use because if you're not used to using an occluded dot, it is a little
Hmm.
awkward.
Yeah, this wasn't a lab radar style chrono, was it?
No, it's no. You kidding me?
Okay.
Nationals? Come on now,
I mean,
that's
it
too
all
much.
depends on who's running chrono and who's if that person is driving or not. But because I do know a couple of people who like to run chrono have two or three lab radar setups, and they're
Area 8
saying if
does
you
that, right? They run the Lab Radar the last 2 seasons. They've done that, the last two Area 8s, and it's been great because that it just point in general direction, you're good to go, right? Now these were the traditional sort of photo effect ones or photo sensitive ones.
hmm yeah, no, and it'd be kind of cool. Maybe we'll see Garmin rocking out out there with
I
their new
saw that.
chrono. Yeah, no bigger than a GoPro, and it's crazy in my opinion how small they're getting those things.
Yeah, the repeatability is going to be interesting. Is how repeatable are they unit to unit? Because like the lab radars are pretty close. Like I've seen them within a few feet per second of each other. The traditional photo chronos, I mean, God, I've seen them 100 feet per second apart, right next to each other. So it's a little interesting how far off they can be.
Yeah. Well, and it's probably got to be a pain in the butt if you were using maybe the Garmin because they are so much smaller, and then you got to try to read them. But here nor
Yep.
there, it'd be cool. It's kind of cool as what kind of technology we're seeing nowadays. With red dots and chronos and whatnot. But I'm really excited for the RTS3 to come out. It's kind
Hmm.
of like a Romeo Max SRO hybrid, but on a Seymour footprint. The Seymour footprint.
Yep.
So then all us open guys can have cheap Romeo Maxes on our open guns again.
I'm very fortunate that SIG sent me a few of those to run at a very nice price, so I didn't have to worry about the cost of them. I think I've got four of them now.
hmm Yeah. How many now? To be in full honesty, how many times have you had to send a dot back for repair?
Never.
What?
I have never had a dot fail on me. Knock on wood.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
and I mean, my first Romeo 3 XL I actually got that one from Christian Seiler. He was selling it on Enos, so I picked it up off of him. I don't think he had shot it, if memory serves me right, but I put it on top of my first slide ride open gun. So I was a slide ride 9 major 320. So I want to talk about something that's going to beat up a dot. Put a couple thousand rounds to that thing. Dot never moved. I was fine. Um, I have never sent one back, thankfully, and I've had SRO. I've had one SRO, and then I've got four or five. I think I've got four Romeo 3 XLs and one Romeo 3 Max, and I've not had an issue with any of them, thankfully.
Yes, thankfully, right? You don't. I wouldn't wish anyone to have dot issues because then you're not beating them on their best day. You're beating them because their equipment failed them, and
I,
I mean,
and I think what I've seen, right, is most guys running like you look at the say the two major platforms you see in USPSA, right, the SIG 320 and the Shadow 2s. Like the open guns don't really put a lot of stress on dots. At least they shouldn't if they're done right, because the dot's not reciprocating. But I see most of the guys that seem to have dot issues, it's on Shadow 2s. I think it's because guys run such light recoil springs in Shadow 2s, like 8 or 9 pound recoil springs. Me, you've got a hammer spring you got to overcome, but those are lightened too. I think it's just bashing the shit out of the dot. Frankly speaking, 320s you can't really get away with having that light of a spring because you don't have anything but the recoil spring. Like 12 is about the lightest you can really go safely in a 320 without it not going back into battery reliably. I know guys run 10s, and I look at them like you need to stop doing that. It's not. It ain't gonna last.
hmm
But I think that's part of it. I think that the Shadow 2s just because the slide is so light and moves so fast, I think it just beats the shit out of dots.
yeah, and I think Tanfo had the same problem too.
Yeah, basically just the copycat design, right? I know a Tanfo Timmy, I know has not had a lot of luck with dots, and I know he runs a Tanfo with a light spring in it, so I'm going to guess that's probably part of it.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious on how Hempel's doing with his dots because he's shooting that IWI Tanfo CZ clone thing.
Well, he had an SRO crack at the optic, crack actually at the through holes through the dot itself where it mounts to the frame. He had one of those crack right before I think it was Area 8 or Nationals. He showed me a picture of it. It was wild.
Oh, I
So
don't like
I
that.
think there's definitely something to that, and I know, like my Shadow 2, I have a Romeo, or sorry, I have an SRO on top of that, mainly because I can't find. Well, I don't think they make an optic mount that drops right on for the Romeo 3s without sending it out for somebody to machine it.
hmm
I mean, I could mill it too. I'm just too lazy to do that, so I have my SRO on top of that.
hmm Fair enough. Fair enough. But that's kind of cool. Dan, we're kind of getting near the end of the time for us tonight, but I do have a couple more questions for you. But so if there was something that current Dan could tell past Dan about shooting, what would that be?
So I started shooting kind of. I think there's two camps, right? Either go really fast and accurately, or go really accurate and slow, and then try to get your hits and speed up over time. I started with the go really fast and not hit anything category. Um, I think I waited a little too long to realize that you actually have to look at the dot twice to be able to get hits. You
hmm
can't rely on pure muscle memory for everything. So that'd probably be my best thing. Um, that'd be the biggest piece. I think USPSA has been a phenomenal community, and I I don't think I would look to change anything about that, but it's definitely about the skill set. I waited a little too long for that to click in my head. I will thank Mason Lane for that. I took a course with him a couple years ago that really changed the trajectory of how I shoot and how I approach things. And it made a very marked difference in how I shot and my performance.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something too. People don't take classes soon enough and they try to just slug it out on their own when go get some instruction, go get some some training. Let's pay somebody else to watch you shoot and tell you what you're not doing right because it's going to save you time and money.
I will say I do think there's a lot of value in that. I also my personal take, right? I waited till I was A class and borderline getting into M before I went to see anybody, and I think I would do that again. I wouldn't change that mainly because it allowed me to really know what I wasn't doing well. Like I already knew where my weak spots were. I needed someone to help me really hone in on what to do to fix that. And I think I got the most value out of that because I sort of already knew where some of my weak spots were, and I just needed that additional kick and push. And Mason helped me see that, and that's where I think it helped me tremendously.
Yeah, no, and yeah, definitely knowing your own deficiencies helps because you're not blindly thinking too, right? You're already kind of
That and like if you're early on in your shooting career, right, and you're like I want to be a GM, and you've not seen any sort of like glimpse that it's possible. Like you need to have a certain amount of raw speed to be an M or GM. Like I don't care how accurate you are. There's a level where you just need to be fast, right? There is a
hmm
piece of that. I've always had that, and I saw glimpses of it, so I knew that I had the capability. I just needed to find someone to help me hone in all the other stuff, and that's exactly what I did, and it made a big difference.
Yes, absolutely. Now, some people don't like this. I love this question because I stole it from Jay Beal and David Riddle of the Casual Shooters podcast. What is your make ready like?
Yeah, most of it's memorization, right? So I just try to visualize everything at least twice. I had a very bad FTSA many years ago, and I've vowed to never have another one. I think I've had one since then. I just really try to make sure I see everything what I want to do and remind myself to do the things that I want to do grip wise. Because if you're going to be fast, it has to be instinctually. You can't be thinking. I truly think you can't be thinking midway through the stage, right? Unless something goes wrong, then you got to problem solve. Hey, do I have enough rounds to make it to the next position or something like that? But you want it to be as automatic as possible. And I'll take a quote local GM Chris Sandelsky said to me a few years ago. Really, really good guy. He said, if you can't remember the stage with your eyes closed, you can't shoot it fast. So I sit there now as I'm doing before make ready, close my eyes and make sure, hey, I remember what all the positions and targets are. And maybe not always during my make ready because I'm not trying to have people fall asleep while I'm standing there, but it's part of my routine.
hmm Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's I don't know. There's a lot of people who will stand up there and spend like an eternity up there before they get ready to shoot, and then you're just like, "Where's the popcorn at?"
I try to do most of it before I step to the line, right? I try to get most of my head in the game before. Now you're working a local match, it's a little harder because I'm usually running a timer and I'm like running a timer until I'm the next shooter kind of thing because I'm an RO CRO, so you got to help keep things moving. Um,
hmm
but nonetheless, I try to do as much as I can before I step up. And I'll be honest with you, I don't treat every match the same. Like local matches, I don't treat with any. I treat it seriously, but I don't sit there and have an expectation for myself. Like majors, it's a little bit different. I have a very different mentality when I approach them.
hmm
Um, Probably not the best thing to do, frankly. I do think having consistency is probably better, but it is what it is. I think I'm there locals to have fun, not necessarily to do well. Doing well is an outcome, in my opinion, not necessarily something I'm deliberately trying to do.
All right, absolutely. Now, so Dan, this is the part where I like to pay it back to the people who support you or you're affiliated with. So this is like where you can plug like your sponsors, your people that you just want to shout out at this point.
Yeah, I think more than sponsors, I think there's a lot of just local people that have been very helpful to me.
hmm
Certainly the whole group Shenanigan Squad, so they'll know who all of them are. The groups that got me into this and have kept shooting fun. Frankly speaking, I would have stopped this many years ago if it wasn't for them. It's got to be fun, otherwise I won't do it. Um, I have to thank, definitely like people like Rob Hewins, people like you who are willing to reach out to people like me and let us get a chance to talk about the things that we do and having fun. Definitely Mason Lane. He's been very instrumental in that, even though it was only one course I took with him, one class I took with him, very instrumental to helping me get where I'm at. And then, certainly I'll give a plug to my own shop. So Good Guys Guns, New Jersey, New York, and Long Island. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that relationship between the group of us that run those. So that's been very instrumental to how I've gotten here. A lot of people along the way that have helped kind of shape my shooting career and have helped me make moves in the industry. Some people up at SIG for sure have helped make that happen, and I'm very thankful for that.
No, that is tremendous, right? The people who can help you out, help out the average day shooter, be able to provide a service to others, like the gun shops. You are helping the Second Amendment out in New
Yeah.
Jersey, New York, and Long Island. You're helping people, defend themselves or recreationally. They can go buy what they want to go buy, and still have a good time. So that's always a good thing too. But we do this for the community of the shooting sports, right? There's always the good people out there that you always hang out, you always enjoy seeing. Or you like, there's people I know I have them. You'll see them once a year at a major match you go to, and it's not like you skipped a beat. Like, I don't know. Do you know Trace Decker?
I've met him once or twice over the years. I don't know him well, but I have met him a couple times. Met him at, I think he was there at Virginia State match that I RO'd at, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, Trace normally travels with his brother and a very old guy, like an older guy with a beard named Rick. And I absolutely love seeing Rick because he's an old guy. He still shoots limited. He might not be having the best match, but he's always a good guy to see, and I always appreciate seeing him, and he always appreciates seeing me. So it's one of those people. That's what you do. You come in for the community to talk to people. It's like, how you doing, man? Haven't seen you in a while, and it's not. It's like haven't even skipped a beat, and that's why I kind of love this sport as it is. But
Yeah, I mean, I love that. So I took this to leap to do RO and CRO a couple years ago. I wanted to do that. I think actually Logan got me into that 357 Souls. He was the one sort of said, "Hey, why don't we go take a CRO class together down at Quantico?" And that guy's been instrumental in helping me get into this where I'm at, and been very helpful and an early supporter of the 320 trigger work I was doing. He's one of the first ones they did out there. And through that, like I look at all the people I've met. I work like last year. I think I worked 8 or 9 matches and quite a few majors out of that. And just the people you see every time you're coming through that and seeing everybody. There's very few squads I don't know at least one or two people on them now, or I don't recognize them. And I think that's the best part of the sport. And to your point, may not be somebody you see more than once a year, but it's still fun to see.
absolutely, it truly is. But Dan, where if people want to get a hold of you, what's the best way, and where can they find you?
Yeah, it's the easiest is through Instagram. Frankly, Sussex Gunworks, Sussex underscore Gunworks on Instagram is probably the easiest way to get a hold of me. I check that fairly frequently. Through that, we can talk about anything, whether it be trigger work questions or the local shop in New Jersey. It all comes through one place, and that links to websites and other things. But most of it's always there. It's the best place to start.
Well, that's awesome, people. So if you want trigger work done by Sussex Gunworks, hit up Dan. You won't be disappointed. But Dan, brother, thank you for your time and hanging out with me and chit chat and just having a good old time on the internet. So I appreciate your time away from, your dog who is quietly now playing with her, not without squeaking on the toy.
She's pacing out the door now, just looking at me like, "Hey, why haven't you taken me out yet?" So it's funny how she won't go away.
Yeah, well, she needs you. That's how it works, right?
Amen.
But yeah, thank you, brother, for your time, and to the listeners, get out and do the things. I will see you on the next one.